Greetings, YouTube. I was recently having a conversation with my friend Amy. She and I have endless banter between each other. It's how we entertain each other. We play word games. And we found ourselves kind of bickering back and forth about the whole concept of creationism. Um, and she dumped something on me that I'd never heard. And that was that there is a creationist argument that evolution cannot function because it creates no new information. She was even nice enough to link me to a video where there was a debate between a creationist and an atheist. And they bring up that particular concept there on the 25-minute mark. Hopefully I'll remember it. I'll put a link to that. It's a long form debate that you may want to take a look at it. The listening to that creationist is probably going to kill some of your brain cells. And the idea that information is not created by evolution and so it cannot exist is an interesting idea. Now, the creationist uses the analogy of a book, which is not difficult to understand why a creationist, who in America, actually in the world at large, are going to be coming from some kind of religion, often from the desert traditions that are founded on books, holy books. Interestingly, I don't know of many Jewish creationists, in the sense that Jews who are pushing the concept that, evolution doesn't exist. Even the Catholics have accepted it. No, there's a lot of Muslims in the world doing it, and there's a whole lot of evangelical Christians doing it. A whole lot. There's an endless plethora of evangelical Christians, Protestants out there who are hopping on the whole evolution doesn't exist bandwagon. But if they base their entire worldview from a book, the Bible in the case of American Christians, it kind of makes sense that they're probably looking at evolution as a book. And so they see it as if you take that book and you change the letters in a word or a sentence at random, which is how they perceive evolution working, that new information is no good. It is not useful. It is not a functioning sentence. It brings no actual information into the world. It is just noise. And in the case of biology, it would not be a viable organism because it would have no structure. It would just be nonsense genetically. And they don't seem to understand how the genes work when you've got the ATCP, ACGC codes, 8 going like this, and if you swap out this code, with the chemical pairs slightly different, you put a new one in, you've made a change. You've created new information. Now, quite likely you've created a bit of uselessness. Most mutations are absolutely harmless and have no effect upon your average person, the average life form at all, or person. Just flat out. Most mutations are absolutely meaningless. Unfortunately, a lot of mutations are also dangerous. Life forms don't make it. Things are missing limbs. But occasionally things have multiple limbs, and occasionally that's an advantage. For example, like in the whole centipede millipede evolutionary track, there is a mechanism for multiple pairs. So pairs of legs are being copied as opposed to just a single leg, which is kind of interesting. But if you look at it as a book and you're randomizing those letters and you're ending up with, visual gobbledygook, it doesn't tell you anything. It was a sentence and now it isn't a sentence. Yes, that is the way you're looking at evolution, that makes sense. That you would dismiss it because, that makes no sense. You're just randomizing things. You're taking something that had structure and turning it into something that doesn't have structure. You strange, you weird evolutionists. But if you say, but no, you're changing specific types of chemicals that come and function in specific types of pairs, and you're doing this because half of the genes are coming from one source and half of the genes are coming from another source, and those genes are knitting themselves together into a new combination, and that is a new form of information. You are a new form of information. You're not like your father. You're not like your mother. You are a fusion of their genetic codes. Now, you may have characteristics of both. I, for example, have the same flat head my father has. I have the same face my father has, but I have the hair of my mother's father. I also have my mom's crappy teeth. Interestingly, her father had awesome teeth. Not a cavities an entire goddamn life. I've had so many dental problems I can't even count. So is my mother. Her father didn't though, but he also had no damn hair. He was almost completely bald. He had the monk's ring at age 19. So I got his hair, even though I got my father's skull of my father's face. My father has more hair than me, and he's in his 80s. So there you go. You deal with those genes going into a new combination, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, boom, new information. You, or in this case, me. So the new information argument makes no sense to me unless you change your particular worldview into an understanding that some of the creationists are viewing genes as a book that contains cogent information, and they're thinking that creationists are saying, no, we're just going to swirl that around and then slap it onto a new page, and we're going to say that information is viable. And the creationist is going to look at it and no, it isn't. If you want to explain evolution to a creationist, here's what you do. You ask a creationist, says, do you accept that offspring from life forms exist? Trees grow seeds, dogs have puppies, your parents had you. You accept that those realities exist. And of course they're here. They have to accept that. There's no way around that. There's no logical fallacy they can throw in your face that they do not exist. That's philosophy, and I don't think that they're going to be getting into that kind of philosophy in their particular worldview. And then you ask, okay, do you accept that between offspring from the same familial group, there's variation? For example, my sister has hair. She also happens to be blonde. My hair was technically brown. It was not gray. And her eyes are blue, while mine are brown or kind of hazily. So there's this very simple, basic variations. But sometimes the variations can be more noticeable. Height differences, limb length, all kinds of different ways you can have different variations between siblings. And of course, because this person has siblings, or they know people who have siblings, and they've seen the world at large, they've seen a litter of kittens, and how the kittens differ from each other. Even though they're all kittens, there is variation between them. So they're very likely to say, yeah, I agree. Siblings within whether it's plants or animals, do in fact have variation. Then the last question you ask them is, you say, hey, so do you understand that sometimes those differences between offspring can offer an advantage or disadvantage? For example, one sibling could be 5 feet tall, one sibling could be 7 feet tall. That kind of variation can happen within a single family. And there will be times when being 5 feet tall is an advantage, and there will be times when being 7 feet tall is an advantage. And there will be time, of course, where the 5 foot and the 7 foot person work together in cooperation and can solve problems that neither of them can solve apart. That involves understanding that sometimes people work better together than apart. They may not like that idea. And of course, they're going to accept that there are situations where being 5 feet is an advantage, and there are situations where being 7 foot tall is an advantage. And they say, okay, congratulations, you accept evolution. Because that, at its heart, is evolution. Now, I realize it's a simplified form of evolution, but those 3 questions, and there is no way they cannot answer yes to all 3 of them, even if they catch on to what you're doing. That's evolution. Bingo, done. So the new information argument is bullshit. But it is very illustrative to me of a frame of mind that I had never considered until my friend Amy threw this idea at me, and then she was nice enough to link me to a video. So yeah, I think the whole information argument that creationists are using is absolute bullshit. I'm not even sure that the people that are proposing it, like in these debates, even believe in it. But it sounds good. And some folks are going to believe it, and that's sad. So have you ever encountered it? Because for me, this is literally, I heard about this like last week, I think it was. I had never encountered this argument before. So this is brand new to me. So I'd like to know, have you ever encountered this argument out in the wild? No, within your own personal life, from a coworker or a family member, or even from like happenstance from somebody, somebody's cousin's brother or whatever. Have you ever encountered this? Because somehow I made it to 57 and I never have.